Hello, is my audio working? Okay.
Hello?
Hi, hello. Can you
Hi.
hear me?
Yeah, I can
Am I
hear you.
audible?
Yes, you're
Am I
audible.
audible? Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Hi, I'm so
Okay,
sorry for making you wait.
it's okay. No worries.
It's
It's
okay.
not a
How are
problem.
you? How are you
I'm
doing?
fine. It's 2 p.m.
It's 2
It's
p.m.
already 2:03. Yes, here
It's
in
3?
my
Oh, it's
country, the
2 or 3.
Philippines.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So
And
can you Yeah, sure.
I thought I'm a bit tardy because
No,
I think we're starting exactly at 2 p.m. Yeah.
I'm I'm sorry about the delay.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay,
Are
can
we
we
now on record? Are we now being recorded?
Yes, it's on live. It's on
Okay,
Facebook
good.
Live.
Okay.
Okay. So, can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Book. Okay.
Yeah.
So tunnels. We're lucky. I have a copy of my written work,
Okay.
Tunnels,
Yeah.
and actually, this is not my own copy. My author premium copies are yet to arrive, are yet to come
Okay.
home. So
Okay.
I just borrowed this from my brother, who now has a copy of my book, and I you see, I signed it for him. So Tunnels is about this suburban culture. Okay, so if you are into hipster movies or films or indie music, and you basically like
Yeah.
subculture studies, or underground indie community in music, or whatever, in art, or even in writing, because they also conduct creative writing workshops in those
Okay.
independent communities. So if you're into that kind of passion, or space, or literary space, you would really love or find this book interesting, because it has a lot of insight about not only the suburban imaginary, or this reality transpiring between, of course, the realm of art, like the world of signs, symbols, very platonic, right?
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
the vision of that artistic landscape, Okay, so this is the world between the realm of art and the realm of course, the culture of the
Yeah.
everyday, the
Okay.
quotidian life of a writer who is, facing a lot of struggle because the literary life, as they say, is never easy.
It's not.
If you want to just publish a book and you want it to reveal your baby out into the world, that's not the literary life. So the literary life is embracing or living uh, the literary life itself. You have to appreciate that there is rejection, that there is, of course, the joy of it. If you get accepted in A-list journals, and then uh, you find that your works like your poetry or short stories are already out there, you would be benefited, okay, by your hard work, because this is the kind of literary life that not all can appreciate, not all
True.
can embody themselves
True.
or immerse themselves into, because the literary life, yes, it's never easy, but at the same time you need to wear two kinds of hats.
True.
Okay, sometimes you have to embrace your being Mr. Hyde, and sometimes you have to be very scientific or very critical of what
Realistic.
you're doing, realistic, pragmatic, practical, like Dr. Jekyll.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to really uh, you have to be at a certain juncture, that kind of intersection where
Yeah.
you are merging, or you're trying to emerge from these two realms. Okay, so it's not just all about publishing, it's also about embracing the literary struggle, the cultural criticism as well,
True.
because that's the life of an artist, not just a writer.
Yeah.
So you have to bear with this kind of situation or literary condition,
Mm.
because the idea here is, how can we situate artists or writer in this uh, post-industrialist or post-colonial society, especially if you're writing in a foreign language like English? Because in the country here, I'm not saying the Anglophone literary community is not that very dominating. I'm not saying it's
Yeah.
not very popular, because
True.
as a writer writing from your own country, you have to write in the vernacular,
Yes.
right? So what if you are writing in a foreign language? You're using this kind of language, and then there are only few opportunities provided, in your own space. That's why, as a writer, you have to look for other avenues. You have to fish for more information, details, where you can publish your work, be it international, national, or even regional, down to the grassroots. So that's the kind of reality that this book is all about. There is a struggle, there is, of course, the joy of getting published to a lot of literary spaces, and of course, it's really in this process. Okay, so while you are reading the book, this book reminds you of how you are enmeshed or being engaged in a process of looking for your own community, looking for your
Okay.
own voice, and sometimes, of course, style. Okay.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
lovely. Thank you for that, Mark. So,
Thank
how
you.
long have you been writing?
Ah, so I began writing when I was in high school, and it did not start with poetry. It did not start with writing critical essays. Of course, you're still in high school. You're not yet exposed to critica or criticism or the formalist approach in literature. Even the elements, right? The rigorous, uh, the tedious process of writing fictional works. Okay, so you're not yet exposed into those stuff, into those methodologies. But as a child growing up in front of the telly, in front of, reading a newspaper or a magazine, okay, I started to love writing and of course literature in general, because of the language that I
Yeah.
kept absorbing. The language, like the language that you hear on your favorite radio station, okay, because they have their own journalists or jargon, right? And sometimes you want to imitate, you want to be like a DJ. That's why you want to speak, or to be like a DJ, or even if you're watching sports television or sports shows like wrestling, sometimes language in wrestling or in basketball, they seem to be very different because they are there to engage viewers to
True.
be more uh, exciting with their use of language. So in other words, you are using purple prose. Purple prose, flowery. It has a lot of um, sometimes provocative, colorful language because you are trying to oppose or not, if not to counteract your opponent, especially the
True.
speech or the
Yeah.
promo of your opponent because you are engaged in a fight. So that's the kind of language that I was exposed to. And then, of course, the language that, especially when I was in high school, I used to keep reading Cummings, E. E. Cummings.
Oh,
Okay, yeah, E. E. Cummings, Anthony Burgess, Tom Wolfe. Okay, so I tried looking for new works. Okay, or new works with unconventional plot and with a wide use of language. So there is a scope where there is language where the use of language is different. So that kind of scope I try to uh, to appreciate, especially with the use of language in Clockwork Orange, right? And the use of language of the beat writers like Ginsberg. Okay, so those are, I mean, specifically American beat poets, American beat writers from Jack
yeah.
Kerouac to the recently deceased Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Okay, right, Lawrence Ferlinghetti. So I love the way they craft or structure their poetry or their literary work, not just with the use of language, but also with the use of somewhat verbose, prolix uh, conversation. It's like you conversing with your friend, with your colleague, and then you are trying to promote a discipline, okay, or an idea or a concept. So it's not really image laden. It's not really concentrated on the image like in a station of the Metro by Ezra Pound, but it's really a friend talking to a friend. So it's like
Yeah.
you conversing over the telephone or via chat. So that's the kind of poetics or technique that they're trying to employ. And I was engaged. I was attracted to that kind to that use of language. So it's not really difficult to absorb. It's not really highfalutin, as they say, or whatever use of purple language. So they just converse with their friends,
Okay.
like a professor talking to another professor, or a scholar talking to another scholar. So that's the attack or the approach of Frank Bidart, Frank O'Hara, or even the contemporary American poets like uh, Ashbery, John Ashbery. Okay, so those are my influences.
Oh,
So I started listening to radio, to my favorite rock station in our country, and then I started watching sports shows like wrestling and basketball, and I tried to incorporate their language, their use of language into my writing because I was just in high school, so I'm not yet very formalistic or very serious with the craft. It's
okay.
just for fun. It's just for me to communicate or to express myself because I'm very young. I don't have yet a degree, but I a degree in creative writing or journalism. But as a high school student, of course, I was already involved in in uh, in papers, campus papers, or how do they call that? Yeah, campus papers or campus
The
organ,
okay.
where we used to join different writing conferences, different
Okay.
competition in journalism. So I was also a part of a campus journalistic organization. And at one time, I recall, I even served as an editor in chief. Okay,
Oh,
an
that's
editor in
lovely.
chief of our high school paper. So that's what I can remember. Okay, yeah. So as a high school student, um, yeah, we're already competing in different journalism conferences. And then books. I love books. And of course, I love music. Back then, I started collecting, in the 90s, cassette tapes, cassettes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I started collecting cassettes. And then until my collection reached 100. Okay, so 100, and then in yeah, in high school or fourth year high school, my collection already reached around 200 to 300
That's a
cassette
lot of
tapes. Because
inspiration to draw from.
yeah, yeah, okay, because
Yeah.
uh I see myself as an oddball, or sometimes a person who doesn't easily fit. That's why I see myself as an outsider. um you may call me very, very strange. You may see me very not mingling well or hobnobbing well with other people, but I used to really love my stuff. So I collect books, but first I collect cassette tapes and then CDs, and then when I got promoted and accepted my first job, I started collecting vinyl records. Yeah,
Oh,
so for now I am a serious vinyl collector. I have around 200 200 vinyl,
wow. That's a
uh
lot.
vinyl records, because it really started from just collecting cassettes. Okay, and then after collecting these curatorial musical stuff, uh of course I want to build my own library. That's why I kept on collecting books as well. Especially
That's lovely.
most of my collection are poetry books.
Okay.
Poetry books, if not books on cultural criticism or literary theories.
Okay.
Yeah,
Are those
that's
the
that's my,
genres that you are most drawn to?
yes, criticism and poetry.
Okay.
Like, T.S. Eliot, a poet critic, even Ezra Pound. So they don't just write poetry and then run their own magazine, like the Dial, like
Okay.
those little magazines in the 1920s,
Yeah.
especially when poetry in America emerged as the locus of different literary movements. Okay, so they don't just write poetry, so they also included in their poetry journals critical essays. So that's
Okay.
what I'm
That's
also
lovely.
fascinated with. I also write critical essays. That's why, as a faculty researcher, at the present time, I get to publish researches and critical essays in journals, Scopus or Clarivate. Besides writing, of course, poetry, because that's really my first love, writing poetry. So that's how it all started.
Okay. And
Yeah,
when did you decide to start writing tunnels?
tunnels. Yeah, okay. So if you this book, if you will see these the poems in this book are all individual works published from different magazines, little or A-list magazines or journals. Um, my inspiration for this, okay, is the first poem, the lyric sequence, the long lyric titled "Something About Tunnels." Okay, that's why I named the book Tunnels, because of the first piece. Okay,
Okay.
if you can see
Yeah, I was
also,
coming to the
there are
title
no
of the book.
yeah, there are no sections, there are no divisions, there are no categories.
Okay.
Okay, so it's just a free will. It's just the freewheeling nature of poetry itself. So I want to envision here also the free flowing um, idea of a poetic work or a genre, okay, like poetry to be fluid. So there are no sections, there are no categories, but the pivot, the starting point is something about tunnels. Now, if you will ask me why tunnels, okay, why tunnels, and why the simple word tunnel, and why is it capitalized? What's the rationale? What's the insight or theory behind that? Okay, so tunnels, you know, are spaces. For me, they are spaces.
Okay.
They could be literary spaces, cultural spaces, landscapes, locutions, everything, okay? As long as there is a restructuring of an idea or thought. So there is no linearity in 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 tunnels, because you know tunnels, the obvious tunnel that we see, right? It's all dark, it's
Yes. Yes.
linear, and then you're waiting, as they say, the light at the end of the tunnel, which is very cliche, right? So tunnels here are windows. They could be doors. They could be the openings of the openings of something like opportunity, rewards, acceptance, okay, reconciliation. So all those abstract ideas, we try to connote them or align them or or consign them with this idea of tunnels.
Okay.
So tunnels, of course, since they invite interpretations, they invite ideas. That's why you see here the tunnel is a hole, okay? And the tunnels, of course, do not just invite opinions or insights, facts, but they also allow people to enter in order for the tunnel to be reconstructed, in order for, you know, our view of reality to be rethought. You have to rethink your idea of reality, okay? Even though ideologically speaking, this is our reality, right? Sometimes we can't fit into this kind of reality. We are just plain spectator, okay? You just observe reality. But this tunnel, since it has an opening, you have to penetrate, okay? You have to penetrate, you have to enter into a dialogue, right? So, philosophically speaking, yeah, it's kind of profound, okay? So this tunnel is inviting you to enter its own portal. You have to enter, you have to penetrate, because if you are
True.
just seeing tunnel from afar, you're just a spectator.
Spectator.
You are
Yes.
just observer, okay? So as an outsider, as a critique, as a critic, sorry, and as a writer, an artist, you have to take part. You have to engage by getting closer to the tunnel, and then you enter the tunnel for you to have a restructured perception of reality. Because not everything is conventional, not everything is linear, right? So we have to really
Look
rethink,
beyond that.
okay?
Okay. Yes.
Look beyond the text, look beyond these enclosures, okay? You have to, yeah. So yeah,
Would you like to read us something from your book?
okay. So I'm reading a poem from something about tunnels, the
Okay.
long piece, okay,
Okay.
the long lyric. And this is my favorite line or lines, okay? So the piece is tunnel number 3, core syllabus on drama. So these are my favorite lines. Since we're talking about rethinking about reality, um, rethinking about conventions, this is what it's all about. Believe me when I say that there exists an author whose name is Edward Albee Hemingway. as there's an artist called Bob Dylan Thomas living inside the basement of our souls. So forget about the structurality of naming a leopard, of entering tunnel number 3 to Hamartia. We're all part of the play anyway. So you see there the word play, it's being italicized, which means there is emphasis on play, and that is my own ludic invitation to, defamiliarization,
Okay.
or for us rethinking ideas, okay, that might penetrate our minds, okay, because you wouldn't believe that that there exists an author like Edward Albee Hemingway. So who is Edward Albee Hemingway? So it's just an invention. It's just an invitation for you to think about whether this person exists. So you don't just read, oh, Ernest Hemingway. So the first person comes into our mind is Ernest Hemingway, okay, because of the
Yeah.
surname Hemingway. And then you have Edward Albee, another great playwright. So a playwright and a short story writer. So there is a coalesce, or a fusion of two different personalities, of two different figures dominating different genre. One fiction, the other drama. And then who is Bob Dylan Thomas? Okay, who is Bob Dylan Thomas? Okay, so yeah. So at first blush, okay, maybe this line is playing tricks with me. Okay, it may be having a bit of a humor, or maybe there's a trick. Okay, so who is Bob Dylan Thomas? Does it tease you out to figure out, is it really the musician, yeah, the Nobel Prize awardee, or yeah, the or Bob, or Dylan Thomas himself from Wales? Okay, so who is this person? So this is what I'm um speaking about earlier. So you have to be careful with the play, okay, with the play of the structure, or
Mm.
with words. So there is here experimentation and the play with the structure. So it's not just enough that you read the lines word for word, okay, or verbatim, but you have to pay attention to
True.
the lines or to the words themselves, okay, because the stanza itself or the whole piece itself is needing attention. Okay, so so what we're arriving at here is a literary work is never easy. So it's
True.
a negotiation, it's like a commitment. Okay, so if the writer gives you something and then the reader takes it easily, there's no give and take, right? The writer just gives and the reader just takes. So that's just uh, consumption of ideas and images. But where is dialogue? Where is the attention? Where is the art of attention? Where is dialogue? Where is
So, in
engagement?
your opinion,
Yeah,
you want your reader to interpret your writings in their own way.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Because as a reader, we also have our job. We
Yeah.
don't just say good stuff. We don't just sugarcoat, right? We don't just rain them with too many plaudits, but it's also, as a reader, as our job is to also think and rethink whether this work is literary. Just like when you say, what's the difference between verse and poetry? There's a difference. Okay, if you a collection of verse, it may not be poetry, it may just be verse.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to rethink, because the book itself needs attention. So it's just like positing the question whether, are you prepared or not? It's just simple as
Yep.
that. Are you ready to embrace the literary or just the mainstream? Okay,
Yeah.
are you prepared to embrace the literary life? Okay, or these lines are just attracting you to just please uh anybody's eyes, or these lines you create them just because you want to get published, okay, and then you sell your books and then you create money. So you have to rethink whether you're writing for art, for commerce, or both. So we all have our own reasons why we're writing and why we are getting this out into the world. Okay, so because you can't, practically speaking, you can't please everyone,
True.
right? You
True.
can't
Very
please
true.
everyone. If this works for other people, fine. So that is, um, you get the benefit. Okay, you get the joy of the literary life. Okay, so I was speaking about the joy and the struggle, the agony of a writer. So if they appreciate this, and if a publisher has interest in publishing this, or if one of the poems got published in A-list journals like the Harvard Review or Iowa Review, you- you're reaping the rewards. You are gaining from your experience as a writer, because you know your experience. You have your own formal training of writing, like you go to workshop, you enroll in a creative writing course, but these are not necessities. These are not necessary for you to become an author. What is important is you understand, you appreciate the struggle of a writer. Okay, because there are
Yeah.
rejections, there are acceptances from communities, from publishers, but the journey doesn't stop there, because the writer must be on this kind of an odyssey. Okay, so it's a never ending process. It's also a never ending uh, feat or purpose for a writer to go out there looking for for the audience, because there's
Yeah.
no such thing as a perfect reader, implied reader, right, or a perfect audience.
True.
Okay, there's
Very
no
true.
such thing as a perfect audience. That's
So,
why if you are successful in engaging them into some kind of a dialogue, well, you'll be happy as a writer. Yes.
so as a writer, have you always been okay with criticism, or did you learn that along the way?
I'm okay. Okay,
Okay.
because I'm also a critic. Because
Oh,
because
okay.
if you're a writer,
That
especially if you
helps.
are a beginning writer, they call it new writer. Then you have emerging writer, and then you have established writer, right? I don't know why in some journals they still need to categorize writers into new, established, and emerging. Okay, anyway, uh, yeah, I'm open to criticism, because if you are a burgeoning writer and you are not open to revisions, criticisms, or as they say, critique, right? Uh, Perhaps you would end up maybe self-publishing yourself,
Yeah.
okay? Because criticism, especially literary criticism or cultural criticism, opens you to a lot of communities, okay? Uh, your book will be read by other people. Your book will be read by other scholar, or we may call them reviewer,
Oh,
critic, right,
yep.
or researcher. So you have to open to those reviews. You have to open to those criticisms. Okay, that's why we have in magazines or journals a section called literary reviews.
Yes, we
So
do.
if your books or if your works got reviewed by other people, especially experts,
Yeah.
critics, scholars, you're lucky, because you are entering this community of artists. But if you're not open to criticism, better not embrace this kind of what I call the literary life. Okay, even if you are in a creative writing workshop, right? There is a sense
Mhm.
of community there. Okay, the mentee mentor relation. Same with MFA creative writing courses, right? You have to, yeah, you have to sit beside your mentor and then listen to him or her. Okay, because those mentors of yours will help you better your craft.
Guide you.
Okay, but not the way you understand the literary life. You have to live the literary life rather than just reading about it. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, you can read about the literary life. You can read the literary life written by Ted Hughes. He has written about the literary life. Yeah, the husband of Sylvia Plath. Okay, so Ted Hughes has written about the literary life, and you can read that yourself. Okay, but living the literary life is different. So you have to be with them. You have to participate in different fora, right? Like this one, like the thing that we're having, like what Kyoto is conducting uh next month, right? I'm not plugging it, okay, but yeah. So like what we're doing in this kind of forum, right? Like what Kyoto is doing, we have holding different kind of webinars,
Yeah.
conferences, which is good, right? So that is the kind of community uh, that we are trying to promote. Okay, and I thank Kyoto for doing this kind of interview, as well as the future events that will be that are in the offing. Okay,
Okay.
the events that are in the offing. Okay.
So, what, according to you, what is the most fun part and the most joyous part of writing?
Okay. The fun part of writing, I guess when you, I have to go first with the fun part of it. Okay, the fun part of writing for me is when those flashes of ideas, colors, specters of colors, images suddenly prod you to write them down. Okay, it's as if there is this secret language between that inspiration or those flashes of images. Okay, there is that secret language between you and those amiable irritants. Okay, I call them amiable because they're lovely and sometimes a bit irritating because they keep on haunting you. Okay, when you before you go to sleep, oh, I have to take
Just write it down.
I have to jot this down. I have to save this idea. I have to preserve this idea so I can type it out next time. Okay, especially when you are keeping a notebook, right? When
Yeah.
you're keeping a notebook and you're very into it, of course you will write all these images or ideas down. Okay, so that's the kind of ritual, right? Uh, Ritual or technique on how you preserve those insights or ideas. Sometimes you keep a notebook in order to chase those butterflies or those flickering images or ideas or sparks. Okay, yeah, and because you know that these sparks will haunt you, they will chase you. Okay, before you go to sleep, before you eat, or before you go to school or to work. So they are requiring your attention. So as a writer, you also give them attention by giving time to write all these down. Okay. Now, I think that's the fun part of it because you are like playing hide and seek. Okay. If you are at work, okay, and then this idea is still in your head. Okay, it isn't giving you any rest. Okay, because it needs your time. That idea needs
Very
your
true.
time. Okay. So you also give that idea some time. Okay. So I think that's the fun part of it. You play hide and seek with these uh, sparks, okay, of creativity. Okay. And then what's the second one? The hardest?
Joyous.
Ah, the joyous?
Oh, you can tell us the hardest part of writing
Yeah,
also.
yeah, the hardest. Yeah. The hardest part of writing your work is acceptance. Okay. Rejection,
Yeah.
which is part of the writing process, because you do not know whether or not this poem will be acceptable. Okay, whether or not this poem will be a major hit in your own community. Okay, in other words, it's hard because you're taking risk. Okay, you're taking
True.
risk. That's why this is what I uh brought to the fore. Okay, you have to wear two hats. You have to take risk on the one hand, but at the same time, you also need to secure your place. Okay, you have to accomplish your goals. You have to take risks because you are the joker, you are the oddball, you are the outsider, you are the writer, right? The artist. And you know the difference between the art and the artist, okay? So you have to take risk. So in other words, you have to open up uh, in order for you to be accepted. In other words, you are like revealing your soul in your writings, and it's a part of taking risk
True.
because you're yeah, you provide, okay, you provide everything to your readers, but at the same time you also need to be the Dr. Jekyll, okay, of literature. You also need to be critical. Okay, you are your most ruthless critic.
Very
You are
true.
your most,
Very
yeah.
true.
So you have to be secure. I'm not saying this thing will will give you a lot of money. Okay, but when I say critical, um, I'm just saying that you have to really continue what you have started. Okay, so if this is your goal, if your goal is to become a writer, okay, or a critic, why not pursue it? Okay, you continue what you've started, but at the same time, do not be afraid to take risk or to reveal your soul in whatever. Being able to be open to rejections and
True.
criticism. Just to share, okay? Just spare me a few seconds. Okay, every day I receive rejection notes from magazines, and I just took them as okay.
Can you hear me?
There's no,
Sorry, I think it cut off for a second.
yeah, I
Yeah,
can
I
hear
can
you.
hear you. Yeah.
You're audible, okay?
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So as to continue, so for first time writer, uh, do not be afraid to take risk. Okay, accept rejection, criticism. If your work gets rejected by a little magazine, a small magazine, or an A-list university sponsored magazine, accept it. Okay, because rejections will just make you a better and um it will make you better and more uh adamant, okay, more uh okay, more open, okay, to a lot of innovations. Okay, it doesn't mean that if your work got rejected, it's the end of it, and you discontinue submitting to this specific journal. It's just that they're looking for a specific theme.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe your work doesn't fit the theme, or they're looking for, I know this is the politics of magazines. Sometimes they're looking for uh, a specific writing style,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That will cater to their own preference.
Yeah.
If you don't write this way, maybe you try to look for other magazines, but they will tell it in a nicer way.
Yeah.
Okay, not to discourage, of course, writers, especially burgeoning writers. Okay, um, so yeah, so I consider rejection as part of the writing process, because rejection can also help me improve or revise my work, and to be open to these innovations. Genre, because every journal or magazine has a preferred, I don't know, okay, genre. No, not genre, but style.
Style. Yeah.
I think I lost you online.
Yeah. I'm
Okay,
so
yeah,
sorry.
it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the hardest part for me of being a writer, being able to embrace and adjust with rejections. You have to adjust, you have to be flexible. Okay, that's
Okay.
the bottom line.
Okay. So, are you working on anything at the moment?
Ah, working at the moment. I After Tunnels, I need to also promote my other book. Okay, my newest collection, my newest poetry collection, which is Love Air, published by another small press. Okay, independent press, not in Asia, but this time in America.
Yeah.
So it's already it's about to be released, probably this, okay, mid of 2021.
Okay.
It may come out most probably in April or May.
Okay.
Okay, because the interiors, the production is already finished, so we're just waiting for the book uh,
Okay.
to be promoted. Okay.
Okay. Can you tell us a little about it?
Ah, so it's a that one is a collection of love poems,
Okay.
because the title bears Love Air. So it's more of this traditional uh, view of people towards love. Okay, because Tunnels is about the unstructurality of beauty, or the de-romanticized perspective towards love. But this time in my newest collection, more of uh, it's more of a mac it's more of a Petrarchan.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So, my final question to you, Mark, do you have any advice for aspiring authors, new authors?
Okay. uh for aspiring authors, Okay. It's better that you accept the reality that there is politics, okay, in our own literary landscape. That is difficult to weed out, okay? It's difficult to disregard politics. Okay,
Yeah.
to help you, and at the same time help your book to be ready, okay. uh
Mark, your video's paused. Hello?
okay, others opinion, so that your work will be ready out there. So, and of course you also need to know, okay, the cultural reality as well as the literary trend or innovation that is, happening out there. uh you cannot simply stick to just one literary trend, okay. Let's say if you are into print, and how come everybody else is going digital, okay. So this kind of thinking could be myopic, okay. So you have to be open-minded, you have to accept trend, literary trend that we have to embrace. So we're not.
Hello.
Be politics, there will still appreciate it, okay. So when you finish your work, when you finish your book, it's not the end of it. You are still, on a journey to learn more about the culture of literature, okay. Yeah, I think I cannot hear you. I
Yeah.
cannot hear
Oh,
you.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I'm
I
sorry.
can
Yep. Can you hear
hear
me
you
now?
now.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you so
I do.
much for doing this interview. It was lovely talking to you.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Good
Okay.
luck with your new book. And this book, Tunnels, is a lovely concept.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Okay. Bye. Bye.
Bye.